Saya akan mulai. Pertama, selamat datang dan terima kasih sudah hadir di kelas kita pada hari ini. Eh, kita akan belajar mengenai Economics of Conflict dan kelas ini merupakan kelas yang inovatif dalam artian kelas ini diajarkan di tingkat sarjana, di tingkat S1 di FEB UGM, Departemen Ilmu Ekonomi. Tetapi dan ini untuk kelas reguler ya, untuk kelas yang non internasional. Akan tetapi dia inovatif karena di-deliver dalam bahasa Inggris. Oke, jadi ini adalah terakhir Anda nanti akan mendengar saya dalam berbicara dalam bahasa Indonesia. Oke, so we're gonna start with the class today. It's gonna be a maximum of 30 minutes. So I'm gonna start with sharing my screen. And we're gonna start with explaining about the class itself. So the class is on the economics of conflict. It's undergraduate level economics program, and it will be delivered mostly through this kind of meetings, synchronous meetings. And we're gonna read this syllabus quickly in probably just 5 minutes. So this subject is an elective, so it's not a compulsory, and it's intended to those who are in the fifth or sixth semesters. So you require to have microeconomics too to be able to take this class. And you can also see how this class is related with the competency goals of the faculty of the of the study program. And it's also related with the course objectives. So we have 4 course objectives here. We expect you to have a substantial knowledge on the economics of conflict, be able to apply economic theory on the study of conflict, have a good understanding of policy toward conflicts, and we also expect you to be able to effectively communicate the review of literature on conflict economics. Now, the assessment for this class is going to be based on 4 items. The first one is individual assignments. The second one is group presentations. The third one is midterm exam, and the last one is final exam. All has the same percentage. So everyone has the same, not everyone, but all of the assessments have the same weight for the final score. Now, the important part of the class is not the lecture. It's not just me talking to you, but I also expect to have like interactions between me and you. So I expect you to ask me things as well as me asking you things. Yeah, and hopefully we're gonna have a good discussions, and that should be also um, helped by these group presentations where you will be asked to present a summary of research, and then there will be discussions between the presenters and me and the other students. Now, so that's basically like the overview of the syllabus. You can look at the weekly learning plan in semester. I'll upload the materials in semester as well as the readings. You're gonna see that we have tons of readings for this class. Obviously, I'm not expecting you to like understand everything, but at least you should be able to read at least at the very least is the abstract and also probably in the conclusion of each of these papers. Right. So that's the overview of the syllabus of the RPKPS. Does anyone have questions or something that's not clear? Okay. So we're gonna start then with the first materials. This is gonna be an introduction, a very short introduction on about the economics of conflict. It's gonna be again, it's very short. It's gonna be just like it's gonna end in 15 to 20 minutes. And we're gonna this is the overview of the class. We're gonna start with some introductions, and then we're gonna talk about the scope and definitions, as well as the kind of analysis that is expected from the students. Now, um, I'm gonna start with some numbers and some facts. So throughout thousands of years of human history, uh, people have been, have been fought against each other. And the oldest recorded war was the Trojan War in ancient Greek in 1300 to 1200 BCE. So it's the recorded war. Yeah, it doesn't mean that there is no war before that year. It only shows that we experienced the first written experience of war was more than 3,000 years ago. Yeah, so it's very old, since like even before the birth of Christ, for example. And again, it's the recorded war. Before that, I'm sure that there are also many kind of wars, um, but it's not written in history. And we're also talking about like war as two big states or two big nations fighting each other. But we also knew that violence, which is also part of war, has been is going to be even older than the history of war. And it doesn't stop. Obviously, it doesn't stop at the Trojan War, but it's also continuing up to today. So today we witness the escalation of conflict between Iran and Israel, and before that between Israel and Palestine, as well as the fight in Ukraine against Russia. So it's um, it's nasty. Yeah. It's all around us. So it shows you like the importance of conflict and war to us all. And in the figure on the right, you saw that we have statistics on the number of casualties, the number of people dead due to war. And the biggest war that killed people is the Second World War, with 21 million people perished in 1940s. So that's a huge number, and it very much outweigh the war in any kind of wars in the history of humankind, and and even it's like three times worse in terms of casualties than the second largest the second uh, war in terms of casualties, which is the First World War. And uh, also, it's again the Second World War ends in 1945, right? It's almost 100 years ago. It's 80 years ago, but even today we still have conflict, as I said before. And as of 2022, we have 236,000 people that were killed from armed conflict. And yeah, I share these slides in semester in our systems at UGM. And in this PDF, if you have this pink phrase or pink words, you can just click that, and it's gonna link to like the websites or yeah, basically the website or the document that is quoted here. So, for instance, for this Trojan War, I linked this to Encyclopedia Britannica, so you can uh, click that, and you'll see in the statistics yourself. Okay. Now, before we move on, I want to ask you one simple question, and I want some of you to respond to these questions. And my question is, what do you think? What is the biggest reason that people go to war, or countries go to war? What do you think is the most important reason? Can anyone tell me or share your thoughts on this?
Maybe conflict of resources.
Conflict of resources. Yeah, it's basically greed. Yeah. So we have
Great.
one country wanted to get oil that is produced by other countries, and they attack that country. So it's probably like the Iraq War, yeah, when Saddam Hussein invade Kuwait. um, how about the others? Robbie, what do you think the biggest reason why countries go to war?
I think it's about a political view in
Mhm.
another country is uh, too many country make a war because it's because have different political view, and like example with in World War II, Nazi and USA, it's because war. Maybe it's political, just politic. But in other hand, it's more about politics. It's about maybe conquer another country, maybe
Yeah.
to occupy resource. I agree with Mas
Right.
Aksan.
Thank you, Robbie, for sharing your thought. Yeah, and I'm sure the other students here also have some ideas, but I think from these two answers is are already quite capturing some of the biggest reasons why countries go to war. Yeah, the first one is because of competing for resources, and the second one is differences in political belief or political ideas, and that is actually what is summarized here. I have these 4 points on why countries go to war. The one that we have discussed before is the second point is about greed, appropriating goods. Appropriating means that you are like taking the goods or the resources from other people or from other countries, and that's also one of the reasons why countries go to war. And as Robbie said, the differences in political beliefs, in values, that is also another reason why countries go to war. And sometimes this is also related with another kind of um, conflict and violence, which is terrorism. So some people have an extreme belief on what is right and what is wrong, and they commit this act of terrorism because they have this belief that certain aspect of religions, for example, is correct, and they are willing to go to war. But other than these two, we also have what's called the just war theory, which is simply people going to war because the other side is evil. Yeah, I think this is one of the reason for the involvement of the U.S. in the Second World War, because they observe that there are some cruelties, that there are some injustice um, among what was perpetrated by the Nazi Germany at the time, and that compelled the U.S. to also join the war in Europe. So that's the just war theory. They fight the war because the other side is basically evil, right? Another one is due to grievances. So grievances is feeling the feeling that there is this injustice in terms of um, political fairness or economic fairness, and this also may lead to war. For instance, in our country, in Indonesia, we experienced the Aceh War in 1970s to 2005, and one of the reason for that war is because of the feeling that you know Aceh is producing a lot of resources, but then most of the resources were, transferred back to Java, and the Acehnese doesn't really get a lot of benefit from the resources that they have. So those are some of the reasons of countries going to war. Okay, again, if you have questions, please raise your hand and you can just interrupt me anytime you want. Right, so let's continue. Yeah, so this has basically already been, I've discussed this briefly before, yeah, on motives and conditions for civil war, the greed and grievance. And also there is what's called the weak state conditions, yeah. So uh, uh, not every country is politically stable. Not every countries have strong institutions, and this theory basically said, or this weak state condition basically states that in countries that is not well developed and is transitioning between one regime to another, it tends to be the weakest situations, and that usually brings about uh, the 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 likelihood for rebellion to occur. So again, using example from the Aceh War. So even though the Aceh War was since 1970s to 2005, but the highest tension was actually at the end of the war. So it's like in early 2000s. So if you remember your history class, in early 2000, we are just experiencing we are experiencing the end of the old order. So we have this reformasi starting from 1998, and during reformasi or the few years during the reformasi, after the reformasi, we have these transitions in governance, um, and and at that time, there was some uncertainties on the future of Indonesia. So people doesn't really know whether the new government is going to be capable, is going to be able to unify the country, this huge country of Indonesia. And that's actually breeding the ground for separatist movement, including the Aceh movement. And that's why there was this heightened activities, heightened insurgencies in Aceh during the first few years after Reformasi. So that's an example of a situation where a country is experiencing transitions from one political regime to another. Also, economic capacity is also an important thing. And the idea is simple. So if we have a large population that is not working, they have no, opportunity to earn money, then recruitment is going to be cheaper. So people are going to be able to recruit easily people who has no, economic means, and they will be drafted to a rebellion, and they will be engaged in war. Now, again, it's going to be a very quick meeting in this one. Yeah, so I'm not going to explain like slide by slide. We have 34 slides here. So I'm going to just move on to some of the important parts. Okay. Obviously, conflict affects people. People are displaced, people are die, but it's also gonna change the way the country works in terms of institutions and social norms. Now, in the second part of this lecture, I'm going to quickly discuss about the scope and definitions. And since the title of this course is Conflict Economics, then obviously we're going to talk about conflict in the using economics methods. Yeah, so we're going to do like statistics, econometrics, also economic theories. And this is the definition. I'm gonna skip that one. And I also wanted to highlight that conflict is also studied in other fields. So for instance, these are some of the links to the study of conflict. A lot of those are in UGM. So conflict transformation, I think it's from international relations. That's from the FISIPOL, Faculty of Social and Politics. People in sociology also study identity politics, sociology of conflict. We also have a master's program on conflict resolutions. And there's also a discussion, there's a field on conflict and health that you can read more about this one. So conflict is a big thing, and it's not exclusively studied by economists. And conflict can also be in terms of scale. Conflict can be large conflict, uh, which here I term as macro conflict. This can be interstate, so between states. So Iran versus Iraq, or let's say Israel against Iran, and so on. But it can also be intrastate or within state. This is basically civil war. Yeah, like the Free Aceh movement, domestic terrorism. If you have um, like in the US, they have the white supremacists doing bombings in Oklahoma and so on. Those are the kind of conflict that happen within state. But we also have what's called the extra-state conflict. So it's between state against external non-state. So it's not between US and Afghanistan, for example, but it's between US against terrorists in Afghanistan. So against ISIS, for instance, against Al Qaeda. Those are in this category, it's categorized as macro conflict. Aside from macro conflict, we also have micro conflict. So micro is, it's basically a fight between small groups of individuals or even between individuals. And it can be like domestic violence, kekerasan rumah tangga, tawuran. I don't know what's tawuran in English. Yeah, it's probably like mob fighting, also human trafficking. Those are the kind of conflict, the kind of violence that happen at a micro level. We are also going to study this one, but it's not going to be like the majority part of conflict economics. So probably we're going to just study this in 1 or 2 meetings. So it's not a big part of this lecture. We also have data on violence, specifically in Indonesia. So I'm introducing you to what's called the NVMS dataset. So NVMS is the National Violence Monitoring System. It's a dataset on violence and conflict in Indonesia. It records a number of different kind of violence in this dataset, but unfortunately, it's only available only up to 2014. So it's not much that you can do with this one, although it's quite thorough, but again, it's only up to 2014. Now, the last few minutes, I will discuss about the data. Yeah, so we have talked about the NVMS, but it's not only NVMS. So, for instance, for the macro data, we have these correlates of war, but that's not the only data on war that you can use. We have the UCDP data, we have ICOW, and so on. You can just click the links, and you should be able to read this by yourself. Um, this one is an example of the data that we have, the macro conflict data that we have. In terms of durations and severity, the number of deaths and the intensity, like the number of deaths per day, we saw that during the age of imperialism, for example, I'm sure that probably only 1 or 2 of you know about this term, age of imperialism. But during this period, there was a number of there were 14 wars, yeah, 14 war onsets, and during this period, the intensity was larger than during the Second World War. So this is crazy. I mean, the intensity number of deaths per day is higher than the Second World War. Yeah. So uh, so even if the number of deaths is larger per war in the Second World War, we have 1 million people killed, but in terms of the intensity is not that big, and this number 1 million people is not just the Second World War, but because we have the 16 war onset, war between France and Germany, it's one war. We have war between Japan and the British. That's another war. So you have to count like one by one. And this happened, in early 20th century, yeah, in 1919 and late 19th century. Sorry, is it late 19th century? Yeah, I think it's late 19th century, late 19th and early 20th century. So this is the kind of data, the data that we have regarding interstate wars. Regarding the micro conflict data, we have what's the NVMS, right? But we also have other data that is more recent. So it's called the ICEWS. I don't want to I don't know what's the kepanjangan abbreviation of this one, but this is event data. So they collect the data using algorithm, using like AI, and then they categorize the data. For example, in 8th of April 2023, there is fighting in Israel where the event uses conventional military force against Syria, and the country that is um, uh, uh, that where it happens was the Palestinian territory. So the war is in Palestine, but there are some people from Syria that are some military forces in Syria that is attacked by Israel, for example, and so on and so forth. So this is the kind of data. And you also saw here the intensity. Negative number is most hostile, positive, large positive number is most cooperative. So if we look at this example from Israel attacking Syria, it's -10. So this one is the like most hostile situation. On the other hand, we have like, for example, in Ethiopia, they are having a truce ceasefire. So that's why the intensity is +9, which means that it's a good thing, right? You have ceasefire, that's a score of 9. Right. Again, we can talk about this a lot, but I'm gonna conclude this discussion with some data related with Indonesia. So, for instance, I'm sure some of you are familiar with PODES, yeah, potensi desa. It's the village level data on villages, obviously, and we have questions to the villagers, to the village head, particularly on conflict in in that village, specifically in the criminal conduct. And we have some of this that we can use to again to do micro conflict analysis, like and it's going to be a powerful data because we have thousands of villages, and if we believe that the data is valid, that the head of the village are honest and correct when they are filling in the survey, then yes, we can use this data to do an analysis. And it has been done, and people have published articles using this data. This is I'm gonna conclude the class with this table. Yeah, so this is um, the history of violence in modern Indonesia, where I divide the periods into 3 periods. The first one is during Sukarno, so it's like during the early days of independence. And then the second one is during Pak Harto, the New Order era. And the last one is during Reformasi. Yeah, so it's 1998 to mid 2010. Yeah. Right, so we saw that the biggest number of people killed were during Pak Harto's era, during New Order era. And here we have number in parentheses like 500,000 to 1 million. And this is the estimated number of deaths. So we have one big event during Pak Harto where almost 1 million people killed in just one single event. Can anyone guess what that is? What is that one big event during Pak Harto, or maybe during the early part of Pak Harto's power, where almost 1 people are killed in Indonesia? Anyone?
Petrus maybe.
Petrus? No.
Oh,
Timor-Leste war?
Timor-Leste? No, not that one. Anyone? It's 1 million. It's very big number.
PKI Pak Rian.
30.
Yes,
Ah,
that
yeah,
one.
PKI.
Oh,
So yeah, the purge of the anti-communist purge can be categorized during Bung Karno or during Pak Harto because it's in transitions. But I like to put it during New Order era because it's the time where Bung Karno is started to get replaced by Pak Harto, and the anti-communist purge resulted in almost 1 million people killed. So there is no exact number of casualties, but historians agree that it's between 500,000 to 1 million people. Now, I'm going to conclude the class using this table. So hopefully for the next meeting, we're going to able to do this kind of discussion again because you have a lot of readings for this class. So again, thank you for coming, and I'll see you in the next meeting.